came out to support Just. We appreciate their viewpoints, their fight, their tenacity, their education on who Ernest Just is and what that individual means to our community and also to our nation. With that said, one of the things we talked about and the community talked about value in children, and at the same token, making certain that we have deliberate speed and also increasing performance outcomes for children every single day. When we look at this particular situation, it openly breaks my heart. Because when we look at the school when you look at 2015, it had 550 students, and it can hold close to 600 students in the school district. And from 2015, and we see where it is today in 2022, 23, is that it currently has 284 students. There's been a steady decline, and I don't disagree. There's been a number of new, housing, being able to, opportunities to come up within that particular community. But openly, when you look at the determination whether or not those individuals are selecting Just Elementary School, we have to be realistic about that point. And if you look at analytics and take emotion out, the answer is no. This is a point where, we're at 47% capacity at this school, and we look at where these individual students have been. Right now, we look at last year's analytics. The school was rated an F school with 11% of the student body proficient in the area of literacy. When you look at mathematics, there are 22% proficiency in the area of mathematics. And you compare that literacy from 11% proficiency in literacy to math, which is 53% at the district level, there is a major disconnect, a major gap. And you look at this year, when you look at PMAs 1 and PMA 2, and that's the progress monitoring assessments that the Department of Education has implemented with our school district, and you look at third grade, the beginning of the year, 4% of the students were proficient in third grade, and now we did in our last assessment, only 11% of third grade is proficient. If you look at fourth grade, 7% of the student body is proficient. At the second PMA, months later, only 8% is proficient. And you look at fifth grade, 3% started the school year proficient, and currently only 3% stand proficient. This is not because the staff is not working hard at this particular school. You have staff that is dedicated, that committed to this school to be able to improve the overall well-being of our children from a social-emotional academic perspective. But when you look at what we have on task, we have 18 allocations at this school. And I'm asking this board to reflect and understand that while we have 18 staff allocations, we only have 11 of those allocations filled, meaning that 7 allocations are vacancies, that teachers are covering classrooms. We have coaches are not able to develop teachers that are covering classrooms. We have long-term substitutes trying to be able to create initiatives and builds. We are using district staff to be able to cover students, and we have major issues with creating the best educational environment possible for 284 students. If I knew there was stability, if I knew this community, the individuals that are in these new, developments were picking Just, and we saw the forecastability of growth, this would not be here tonight. But openly, we must be able to address it. When we have 7 instructional vacancies at that school, note that this school qualifies for UNICEF grant. That means that highly effective teachers that transition to Just Elementary School have an opportunity to have and qualify for $15,000 additional pay on their salary. Also, teachers that are effective in the school district on their VAM, they qualify through UNICEF for an additional $7,500. And we can't recruit individuals to the school to serve children, and that's a disservice to children. We do not have the luxury of taking teachers our support staff and moving them to the school because we have a collective bargaining unit that doesn't allow us to do that. Or we would be able to say, you know what? We need our best and our brightest to go to the school. We need them to move. We're going to move an educator from A to B. We cannot do that. We have to follow our language. In this process, when we talk about kids and talk about performance, they're moving to 2 schools with Booker T. Washington and at the same time Tampa Bay Boulevard that are both 2.3 miles away from Just Elementary School. 2.3 miles away. Community members talked about Dunbar. Dunbar is relatively close, and Tampa Heights is close. Those are also magnet schools that we have to eventually have a conversation about. With this said, the biggest thing we talk about is moving and improving the experience. You improve the experience when you have consistently high-quality teachers in front of children every single day teaching Tier 1 quality and providing quality instruction on a continuous basis. At these two particular schools, whether it be T. Washington at the same time with Tampa Bay Boulevard, we have those availabilities to be stronger in front of children. When we look at the performance level of, JUST, which is a school grade, and I know that we talk about school grades don't define us, but that's a reality from the Department of Education. It's an F. They go to improved experiences where Booker T. Washington is a C, and at the same token, Tampa Bay Boulevard is a C school as well. One thing that the school district did before I had an opportunity to transition here, in 2019, this school was rebranded in 2019. This is before the pandemic. Before, in 2019, which was to look at, and they brought on the Riverwalk STEM Academy in August of 2019. In that process was about trying to rebrand, bring in technology, bring STEM project-based opportunities within the school in order to improve those experiences. That wasn't a super attractor to be able to have gravitation to students within that particular community. The other thing to note, why JUST is identified to the Department of Education as an F, if JUST is a double F, or anything under a C in 2 consistently years, then we'll have to come back to the board, and the board will have to make a choice per Florida Statute 38001, which you will have to identify whether or not you will select a external operator to help JUST, whether or not you will close the school, or whether or not you will turn the school over to a charter school. So for us, bringing this to account is be able to serve the 284 students in a better manner. In no way, shape, or form, we had originally talked about potential sale. Through the board workshop, very clear that sale was not an option. That is off the table. Therefore, there's a lot of opportunities we have that we can try to reboot and really go to the community to identify individuals that are going to private schools or going to charter schools in that particular community. What does it take to bring you back to this particular school? How do we particularly rebrand the school? Do we use this as a professional learning opportunity? Do we create a STEM hub for the district in being able to allow teachers and students to have field experiences to this particular school? Until we actually need it in multiple years, and we regain the trust of our community. A number of things can happen. With this said, I'm going to release it to Shay McCray, who leads the school and our Chief of Transformation, to be able to talk about current spaces, and then maybe transition to Mr. Farkas as well, and then have interaction. And please note, as I said again, I appreciate our community members showing up. Owl with Omegas always show up for our children, and thank you so very much. But we have to be able to do something now to be able to address the 284 students in this school. Ms. McCray.
All right, I just want to make a correction on the Florida statute.
Okay, sorry.
That's no problem. I gave you the wrong statute. So this is going to be Florida Statute 1008.33. That is the statute that governs our D and F schools.
Thank you.
And part of that statute is when a school becomes a first-time F or a double D, their second D, we begin the turnaround process. So they are part of the turnaround process. The state actually joins the Transformation Network. There is a state team that is at the school every week providing support, as well as the Transformation Network, to help improve the outcomes of the school. After 2 consecutive years of either another D or an F, that's when the state asks us to go into planning mode to then decide one of 3 options. Either 1, we close the school, reassign students, and progress monitor that reassignment. 2, we close the school, we commit to a charter school, which has to have a governing board. This is not a district-managed charter. This is an outside charter school with a governing board. Or 3, we have to get contracted external services. That's our external operator services, which can cost upwards of millions of dollars. So that is something that the state will force us to do in this process if the school does not show improvement a second year in a row. Now, this year, we don't get graded. We are at a bye year. So it would be after the following year, the 24 year, depending on what that grade is, the state will then ask us to go into a planning process if we don't improve the outcomes. I just want to remind everybody that we did have 7 vacancies this school year. And again, we do not have any type of internal agreement with the union, or do we have a district process or procedure that allows us to involuntarily move teachers? Teachers have to want to be at the school. They have to volunteer. They have to interview, be hired. We do offer the UNISIG bonus. We also have a Transformation Network additional pay bonus for all of our transformation schools, just as included, which is an extra $5,000 per year for our instructional staff. So that is already on the table. I think Mr. Davis did a great job going over the facts of the school as it stands. Mr. Farkas, do you have anything that you want to add for facility or operational purposes?
I definitely want to talk a little bit about the neighborhood concept. So the kids from Just, where do they go to middle and high school, which is part of the conversation? They stay in neighborhood. So the Just students go to Madison and Monroe. They're actually bused to South Tampa for middle school, and then they come back to Blake for high school. There are actually, in full transparency, there's 17 kids that are on the south side of 275 that actually go to Plant from Just, that are scheduled to go, that are scheduled that way. But the rest of them are in that situation. So I think that it's important to understand in the May 9th concept, when we bring back the rebounding process, some of that may change. If that's approved, some of that recommendation will be there. But as of right now, the students at Just leave their neighborhood after that year. Now, one other part I want to talk about with staying in the neighborhood is what are the choices if they don't want to go to Tampa Bay Boulevard and what if they don't want to go to Booker T. Washington. There's 3 magnet schools within a 3-mile radius. All of them have capacity at this point. Lockhart, Dunbar, and Tampa Heights are all within that 3-mile radius and all have availability for that and include busing for that part too for the parents that are interested in that.
And thank you both. In addition, we have we put Daphne over there to be our leader because she moved Kimball from an F to a C, and openly having many conversations with her. You know, she understands how hard and difficult it's been to be able to serve children and do it. Where she's teaching classrooms, and every single day she's breaking up classrooms because they're not covered to be able to make certain that there's some type of instruction that are continually taking place. So, Ms. McCray, anything else you want to add related to what you see over there as you walk classrooms, or we're good?
No, just want to remind everybody that children should be in front of certified teachers. We want to make sure that kids are getting the best education every day. That's what we focus on in our network, is making sure that we get the best education every day. So we really want to just encourage making sure we get the best teachers in the schools that need it the most. Just at this point is the school that need it the most in the district. It is the school that is in need of the most support. It is our only F school in the district. And so getting the best teachers in front of kids would be of top priority.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I need a motion and a second to approve item C712. I have a motion by Member Perez, and I have a second by Member Hahn, Member Perez, Member Gray, Member Vaughn, Member Washington. Pull this item, and we'll just begin with Member Washington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for the information, Superintendent. In my opinion, I don't think we have really worked to advertise the school, because we must be aware of how we move black kids and black and brown kids in this situation. And I know, they said you're not making the grades, you're not doing that, but what have we done as a district to really help that school? Because I was the area superintendent for a lot of years. It wasn't in my area. We have to look at how we treat our black and brown students and repurpose our schools. Because over the years, it's always the black and brown students, or it's always a school in the underserved area. We can't keep doing that, because over the years, Hillsborough County has always moved our black and brown students. Nothing has changed, though, because when you move, just like the people from Carrollwood, they want to keep their kids. Everybody wants to keep their students, and our community want to keep our kids at the school. Even if it's 250 kids, they are students. Look like it would be more easy for us to accommodate 250 kids than it would be for 400 kids, because we got to work, we got to get those wraparound services over there to help those kids, to help the students. That's important. Number two, what I think is important, you say you driving 2 miles or 2.6 miles. It don't make a difference if you driving 100 miles. The kids are still leaving that area. Those kids want to be around their friends just like any other students. They come in they came in tonight, you know, and my constituents, I'm with my constituents. We can't do that. We can't do that. We got to figure out a way how to make Justice a famous school. The person itself is famous. We have to work just as hard at Just as we would do at Potter or any other school or Lockhart. We had F schools there, and we worked hard to get that back. So why we can't work hard to get the school back? Why? Nothing has changed. People, nothing has changed. I'm 74 years old, and nothing has changed. It's always our community, it's always our kids that say, well, you know, we don't do this, we don't do that. But at the end of the day, we don't do dooley squat. We don't do anything. You know, and I stayed up, I've been up. My wife can tell you, I've been up. You see, the school system might have good intentions, but the process is flawed. You may in your mind, oh yeah, I know we need to do this, we need to do that. But what process we have going to make that school successful? We don't have no process. We're the 7th largest school system in America, and we don't have a process to make Just successful. Something wrong with that. That's flawed. And we need to do something for Just. And I'm telling you now, I'm not going to vote for this. I'm not going to go for this. Because I haven't seen enough improvement to help Just out. And plus the underserved area. And in the next couple of years, I have information here. In the next couple of years, we're going to have a lot of people in that neighborhood moving. I have it. I have the data in front of me. We don't have a lot of people moving in that neighborhood, then what we're going to do? You don't have to answer it now, Sue.
Yes,
but what are we going to do then? We got to bring all those kids come in that area. Because I just fail to believe like hell that we can't get that school passing. I just can't believe it. In today's society, the 7th largest school district in America, we can't get 254 kids passed because we can't get teachers or whatever the case might be. And put me back in the queue when I...
Thank you, Member Washington. Member Perez?
I echo your sentiments, Member Washington. We talk about Kelly Services in this district. And Kelly Services, you want a contract for us to bring them on, but they're not going to the schools that we need them in. You talk about the empty classrooms and how we don't have teachers. When have you gotten together with the community to ask what they can do? That's a question. When did you get with the community to ask them how they could support the school?
Yes, Madam Chair. We had multiple community meetings related to boundary initiatives.
Please stop my time.
We had multiple conversations with communities related to boundary changes and how they would play an active role in this process and get their feedback. And everyone is willing to be able to wrap their arms around just like everyone's willing to wrap their arms around particular recommendation through Monroe, whether it be in other schools that we've identified related to McLean that we've identified in our repackaging process. The issue is that it's all about being able to make certain that we properly serve children by having highly qualified, skilled teachers to be able to attract to them. There is systems and processes to be able to move the needle within the school district. This administration has proven it time and time again to this entire community what we had the abilities and capabilities to do when we took, I'm going to say, historical 28 D&F schools to 5, and we took 20, within our school district, and that we've improved the initiatives. I would not come to you, and I've been in 3 districts, right? And I've done a lot of this work, some of the same work in Duval County, different work in Clay County, and then coming here in Hillsborough. I wouldn't bring this to you if it wasn't a point where it is very seriously to properly serve children and to make certain that we have the best educational environment for them. There's a recipe through Transformational Network that we've outlined with making certain that we have Tier 1 instruction in front of children every single day, making sure we have high expectations, they're demonstrating ownership, they're demonstrating understanding, and that we have high expectations for every one of our students. That is the recipe with having the right curriculum guide, supports, and ongoing. The issue is that what we have done is deployed Mr. Connor's team from Academic Services to go assist, to be able to take transformation personnel to go assist. We have the state there that are being able to help try to serve our school as well, in that we're floundering to be able to make sure we have consistency along with financial incentives to be able to have people, high quality teachers in front of children on a consistent basis. So when we talk about community, I need the community to help us recruit teachers in that space, to be able to identify teachers that they know and they love in the community to step up, because it's not about, we do want mentor and we want volunteers into that particular school, but we need assistance to be able to bring individuals to the school and have not only to it, but want to stay there the entire school year and to be able to serve children in one of our greatest needs. So it's not about the building, can we move it? It's about 250 kids. And the issue is when we identify the school being a letter grade of an F, when you have 250 students in that particular body and only 3rd through 5th grade count, every kid counts in every silo. Every kid counts. So there's no room to be able to make up, if you have a number of underperforming students, 1s and 2s, in limited numbers of students in 3, 4s, and 5s, they all count, which becomes very difficult because all those students are in your denominator to be able to continue moving. And it just takes consistency and high quality teachers in that process.
It takes consistency and high quality and administration that believes in our children. Not an administrator who calls me and says to me that these children only want to be mamas. Not an administrator that says that the greatest outing in these students' lives is going to Walmart. For me, the school, we talk about equity, equality, diversity, and inclusion. It doesn't help when we talk about Just Elementary as a junk, a mess, run down, and insignificant. And those are the words I've heard used when describing Just Elementary. Just Elementary was rebranded actually in 2021. They put new furniture, new robotics, new computers, even painted the school. But that was done just before going back to school from COVID. How was the community or anyone supposed to know that this school was rebranded by doing it that way? To me, you might as well have done it in the middle of the night and not said a word. Here, it takes community, and it takes years for communities and students to have a trust in us. Right now, there was 670 units demolished in 2018, and right now, as of today, there's 1,529 housing units there. Also, West River will have approximately 1,800. For Member Washington, I'm going to state the numbers for the record. And then also, they're going to be replacing another 3,000 units. But you want to move some babies. The babies that you want them to walk for 2 miles, hey, not a problem, 2 miles away. But then we vilify parents when they don't show up for the meetings with teachers. And let me tell you, the teachers talk bad about them. We vilify the parents. I have parents now, right now, in this district that have not visited their schools with their children because it's too far. They have no transportation to get there. And for me, we're we're doing just a disservice, whether it's 5 students, whether it's 10 students, or 200 students. Those parents are able to get to that school. Those parents are able to work along with those kids in that school. And the community has spoken. The community has talked about, we talk about honoring and seeing our children, seeing themselves to reflect that we care about them. But it's not by shutting down their schools. And the community talked about the fact that this school is named for a distinguished person, that our children could look themselves at this person and see themselves in this person. I'm sorry, but I cannot support this. I'm going to stand with the community. And, you talk about literacy and math, but it's not only about literacy and math. If you had your staff in there teaching them, then shame on you, because apparently they didn't learn anything from your staff.
Thank you, Member Press. Superintendent Davis, you wanted to respond to?
Yes, ma'am. And listen, I appreciate your passion. And when we talk about staff, we're talking about highly qualified, certified teachers that are academic coaches, that are mentors, that are going there teaching kids every single day. And for those of you watching, never shame on you. You're doing a really good job being able to lead children every single day when we need you. Thank you for being a part of this organization. At the same time, let me reiterate that 2019 is when this district rebranded the school, not in 2021. In 2021, we may have added initiatives to a theme that the school district came about. You can ask everybody that's been here, tell me 2019, not 2021. At the same token, we talk about teachers that talk bad. If we have teachers that talk bad about parents, let us know. We'll be able to address those. All we want is parents to be actively engaged in that process. And when we have 1,500 units that are currently there, they're not selecting us. That data has clearly identified that. And if and I did go look and have conversations, Ms. Perez, when you had a conversation with a leader that talked about Walmart or moms, and she denies those conversations happen. And listen, I'm not in the middle of that. I'm ready to make certain that we have individuals that are champions for children every single day. And nobody from this administration has ever, in this front row or at the school, talked about just being junk, messy, or run down. It's actually a beautiful school. And they put a lot of money in it related to capital work and Chris and his team. All that to say is that we're going to continue to help kids every single day, and getting them in front of certified teachers is the greatest priority every single day under my belt.
Thank you, Superintendent Davis. Member Vaughn?
Thank you. I feel like there's tension here, and there should be. But I believe it's from everybody wanting what's best for our students. And it's an honor to serve with board members who are so passionate about our marginalized communities, because we see conversations happening in other school boards and they don't sound like this. And I think we're all dedicated to the same thing. I'm going to start with some questions like I normally do. I'll probably end up getting back in the queue. But when we start talking about this community, Mr. Farkas, and again, I had asked for some information. You sent it to me. I looked it over. I couldn't pull it back up. I was really hoping to attach it to the agenda item so I could look at it, or at least have it when I request information at the dais, so I don't have to scroll through my phone to try to reference things. Where are our students going? We're saying it's zoned for 550, almost 600 students. It's at half capacity. Where are the students going in your estimation?
So it's on the agenda item. It was attached. It's the fourth attachment.
Okay.
There's 4.
Just placement code?
Yes. Exactly.
Okay.
And it's a pie chart.
Thank you.
So we could have that. No problem. And so it's all the kids that are assigned there and where they're going. So we have 63 kids that choice out. We've got 100 that go to Magnet, and then we've got about 45 that go to either partnership or charter school. So either religious school or a charter school that are assigned there. The rest of them are the neighborhood kids.
So when you say choice out, what does that mean?
It means they go to a school that's under capacity, they're allowed to choice into. So they choose a school that's not there, that's not a magnet school, that's just a traditional school, but there's room at that school for them.
But they're in our district. They're just not going to
Yes,
Jeff.
ma'am, exactly.
Okay. I'm hearing multiple things, right? Like, I'm hearing from the superintendent, your priority and the reason that you're pushing this forward is because you're worried about the quality of instruction and having certified teachers in our schools. I'm sure other board members are going to talk to the financial attributes of it, because we have a lot of conversation, as we've had nonstop, about our finances and what that looks like. I'm not really sure about the money aspect of it because it seems like it's salary heavy, which again, we said we're going to place those teachers somewhere else. So I'm not sure how we're accounting for the salary, but in estimation, we're talking about $1 or $2 million per year that we're saving and repurposing that. Am I getting the numbers about right based on the estimations that you sent me? So that's the money aspect of it. For me, what I'm hearing, and again, I'm trying to make my decisions as we move forward in this very complicated educational times about what the community is asking us. And while I hear you say we've invested what we can and what we know, and I have full confidence in our staff, I know we've moved a lot around. I'm not accusing us of not investing. There are systemic problems in society that are contributing to this. That's a much longer conversation than just what the school district is doing. However, what I haven't heard and what I am hearing is the community saying, challenge us, right? We had members here today, I believe his name was Dr. Modi. I tried to write him down, Lafayette,
Monday for you.
who said, you're saying, you haven't given the community a chance. We understand now what's on the table. Challenge us and we want to rise to the occasion. And while, I think that maybe academically, internally, we might have done that. I don't think we've given the community the chance to do that. And so what I'm hearing is we still have a 2-year window after this to make decisions, that this is kind of the crunch time. We're not going to get graded this year. We're going to have 2024. Personally, now that the community has come to us and they said, challenge accepted, this is an important school to us. We want to invest and figure out and partner with you on what it looks like to make this school successful. I would prefer as a board member to lean into the community and give them that opportunity. And if state mandate says that in 23, 24, we're still failing the students and the community is okay with that, they're saying give us that opportunity, well knowing, right? I want everyone who spoke here tonight to understand that we're saying if we give them this opportunity to change the school around and invest the community, that's more time kids are going to sit in the school that don't have qualified teachers. And that's what the community is asking for from us. So hopefully the partnership and the challenge is we're going to get qualified teachers in there as soon as possible so we don't do a disservice to our kids. But if that's what the community is asking for, I believe we should give them the opportunity. Personally, I don't see a financial benefit that for 2 years in that time period, that money that we're saving is enough, because what I think will happen is if we close a school, our Black and brown community will distrust us more. And as schools of hope build in these communities, whether or not that's the best choice, they're going to lose trust in our district to support those Black and brown communities. And as much as we gain by maybe repurposing the school, we're going to lose those children to ideas and other schools of hope that come in. And I hate to reiterate that we've had this conversation about traditional public education and the attack on it. And we've said over and over again, who it's going to hurt most is the marginalized communities, right? It's not going to hurt my kid. My kid's going to be fine. What we've said over and over again is that who's on the chopping block and who's going to be hurt most is our marginalized communities. So as we move forward, and I'm going to vote to give this community the chance to reinvest in this school and not support this agenda item, I hope our communities are not just reinvesting in this school, but fighting for traditional public education in general. Because again, as it's under attack, the people who are going to be hurt most, the communities that are going to be hurt the most, are our marginalized communities. So I hope that this is a wake-up call for all of us to collaborate and be partners moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Vaughn. Member Gray, but did you want to say something, Superintendent Davis?
If okay. And to that response, the biggest thing is that every year that we go, the achievement gap could be potentially exacerbated. So, I mean, we've already had COVID, and then here we are again, and we start another initiative where, the majority of these individuals have already choiced out to different schools for next year. And actually, the entire staff has already choiced out to go to a different school next year, and because they want clarity, they want stability as well. So now we got to start from the ground up of being able to fill 18 positions next year, and that just starts to be able to have a greater separation of student outcomes that we may have to be able to address multiple years. So, but I appreciate the conversation.
Thank you, Member Gray. Thank you, Superintendent Davis. Member Gray?
Yeah, the night's getting a little bit older and older, as we all are. But, the closing of JEST is not really reflecting the will of the people in the communities. I will say tonight, when we listen to the Urban League, TOBA, the fraternities, NAACP, Fred Hearns, Omega Sci-Fi. All these are agencies, groups, community leaders that can, in fact, make a difference to a school. I am reminded when we, this is Albert Fields from the NAACP, when we visited transformation schools in St. Pete, and you probably know this, Shay McRae, Melrose was the lowest school in the state of Florida. They brought down a woman from Washington, I can't remember her name, but she lived in the Melrose Avenue area, and she had the community come into the school. One student had a tutor, 1 to 2 students had a tutor. One student had a mental health, 1 or 2 students. And of course, they had a certified teacher. But it took the community to change that school, and then they had that model. It went from a F to an A, couldn't stay there. They went down to a B. She used that model with other failing schools. Well, what I'm going to say is I agree, and the Ron Clark, if any of you haven't gone there, shows that those schools that are failing or should fail can be changed with community and parental support. What we're missing is the community. And I say, through Principal Kevin McDonald, who I'm friends with, and many folks know that, I've been at Just more times than I can even remember. In 2019, COVID, we did the lunch grab and go. 2020, we gave them STEM, we gave them the PBIS, we gave them Lego, we gave them, then in 2021, $50,000 was invested for technology. So all this was a give, and then Shay, always on the phone, I'll give you whatever I can. We wanted it to be a transformation school, but it didn't fit yet, so then Daphne came, Daphne Forqueen, an excellent principal, has the same motivation, change the school, get it to the grade, et cetera, et cetera. So you had effective leaders, and you had effective teachers. Now you have substitutes, and you have some effective teachers, and it ain't working. All right, so now the community comes to this boardroom and very, very unified. And now, according to Dr. Lafayette Monday, I hope I got the name right, says that he's prepared to give us the jobs and let the community help that school succeed. So in very much in the same vein that Member Vaughn has said, the challenge hasn't been given to the community, and I think it's time for them to step up. I wish, this is the first reading, I wish I could say, and Superintendent Davis, I apologize, I usually don't change my stance, but the will of the people will not be put down no matter what area that you reside in. The will of the people is so important. Now, if it's that important, I'm looking at you, James, because you're right there, but if it's that important, then we challenge, and I'll speak for 2 of us, the community to help us make this school whole and make it successful. And the teachers, we will have to start there, because without effective teachers, we're going to be right back where we were. I don't know how much time we have, and I'm out of time, but I'm listening. I'm still on the fence. I'm not totally convinced if the community's up to it, because it's a big challenge. I'll get back in the queue.
Thank you. Member Hahn?
Thank you, Member Combs. So, I think this is a great conversation. This board has been very student-focused tonight, and I love that, because I do approach my role looking through a student lens, no matter what the issue. I know that tonight, it was not easy for Ms. McRae and the superintendent to bring this to the board. I know, Shay, you have put every resource. For 5 years I've been on this board, we've been talking about Just, and we've been pushing resources into that school. This isn't about a building. It's not about boundaries. It's not about a name on a building. And it's not about the adults. This is about 284 kids. I'm very thankful for the passion on this board tonight. It's really, everyone's really brought up great points, but I keep going back to 284 kids. This school is no longer in intervention mode. Look at the data. This school is in, these kids are in crisis. Having the community go in and provide services, that's in intervention stage. We have long passed the intervention stage. This is in crisis mode. You want to wait, you think you have a 2-year window, and you talk about that, that's a big risk with kids to say now you're going to provide this intervention. In 2 years, look at these numbers. You have PMA scores, 3% of fifth graders with PMA 1, 3% of fifth graders with PMA 2. And you want to risk their future by an intervention that should have been done 2 years ago, quite frankly. These kids are in crisis. Where are their PMIs going to be? PMAs going to be in 2 years. Then, well, you know what? I heard tonight, if kids are failing in 2 years, then we can close the school and we can move them. Where are these third, fourth, and fifth graders going to be in 2 years? You're right, Superintendent, I'm sorry, but the achievement gap is going to be enormous. These kids that you are risking, that you are playing a risky game with tonight, are going to be lost in the system. They don't have 2 years. We talked about the importance of teachers for kids' success. And the question's been asked in relation to this boundary discussion. How will this provide children with better academic opportunities and outcomes? In this case, that's been asked by board members when we've talked about boundaries. And in this case, the answers can be given. This will stabilize the teacher workforce. I even thought you told me that some of these teachers might move with these kids to these other 2 schools.
Through the chair, we have aspirations of when allocations move,
That
we
they
want to be
move.
able to.
Increase in wraparound services for students. Increase in academic support services for students. These are all things we know that contribute to higher learning outcomes for kids. This is about these 284 kids. Immediate needs. This is not a judgment on the hard work that's being done at Just. I'm sure they're remarkable in their efforts. But what we know is that closing a school at low enrollment like this in this type of crisis can help us maximize the efficiency and effectiveness in regard to the resources we're providing. I'm not even thinking about the finances, quite frankly. I'm thinking about these kids. And I just don't know how we take such a big risk with these kids. I know in speaking to many of our community members, I understand your passion for wanting to keep Just open. I do. I'm not wanting to sell Just. None of us have wanted to sell Just. I know that, numbers have been shared about community growth that's going to come. And maybe when that comes, you can talk about reopening a school. But right now, the reality for these kids today, they are in a failing situation. They need stability. They need high-quality teachers. They need more services. They are in a crisis right now. What you're talking about doing with the community is something that is done at an intervention stage. I've worked around turnaround schools. I can recognize this. They are in jeopardy. Please do not risk their future, please.
Thank you, Member Hahn. Member Rendon?
Member Washington, Member Perez, Member Vaughn, this is an extremely difficult decision, and none of us can understand, Member Washington, what you have walked through over your years, nor would I even begin to understand. But I have to ask Ms. McCray again a little bit more because I want to make sure that I understand the long term. You know, we've had a couple years where we didn't have quote unquote grades, but we do have numbers, and we do understand that in 2021, what were our stats at that point?
So in 2021, we were not graded that year. Any school that was below a C did not receive a grade. So Just was a C school in 2018, 2019. In 2020, we weren't in school. In 2021, the bottom fell out. We did not receive a grade because it wasn't a C at that point. We dropped to a D. And then just last year, we went down to an F. So we were not graded in 2021. And then we were F in 2022. This year, we will not be graded again. Here's where there is an addition.
We would, as a stats show today, we'd be an F.
Right now, we're
It
an
would
F.
be a second year.
Yeah, through the
Yes,
year,
that's correct.
absolutely.
If we were to get grades now.
Day.
But the year that we were a D but not graded, we do have the stats of where we stood for our students, right?
For our ELA and FSA stats?
Yeah.
ELA in 2021, ELA, 16% of the student body was proficient. In mathematics, it was 31% proficient. And
16 and 31, but again,
they had 261 total points, which is an F.
Yes, that's correct.
It's an F.
even though we were not graded, we were still in a decline. So we've had some grace to be able to be in control a little bit more of that. And during those 2 years, what other resources we put into the school? We've got the state coming in, we've got transformation. But if I remember correctly, we've got some additional resources that we've been putting in there as well.
So they have 3 college fellows. We do have our Transformation Network team. Normally, our team goes and we support the planning process, professional development, but our team has actually been in classrooms and teaching this year to take over for the gap. We also have other district staff from academic services that have gone in, provided support, as well as our VE staff have gone in and provided support this year for the school as a district staff to try to mend some of the gaps this year. Here's the caveat I also want to express just for the public and for everybody to be clear. This year, we are implementing new state standards. We have new curriculum and we have a new assessment. It's all very new. So again, we are learning as we're going through this year. So that's why we won't be graded at the end of this year. We will have data, but we won't be graded. It gives us one additional year to try to improve outcomes. So I also want to add that while we're looking at school grades, we also have changes at the state level that changed our system for testing, our state standards, as well as our curriculum.
Which means it's extremely important to have a full staff to be able to teach children
That's what makes
standards,
this-
core concepts, enduring knowledge, essential vocabularies. Sorry.
There's a lot of changes that are not, in our control. Yes, ma'am.
Well, and I want to applaud the community that have come out because they see a need and they see a need to solve that, and I applaud them for stepping up to do that, and I applaud Omega Psi because as they spoke, they said they've been in these schools mentoring. This is not just a plea today. They have already said when they spoke up here today that they've been in the school. They have been mentoring in the school. So I beyond applaud them, and I hope no matter what decision they make, they follow the children or they continue if the decision is to stay at Just. Either way, I hope they continue and build and grow on working with our students. I don't care how old a student is, any direct involvement can support a student is phenomenal. My daughter alone has had experiences this last week where I'm extremely thankful for those mentors in her lives because that was something I could not give her that she needed. So I'm very thankful for those mentors that can step up. I want to remind everyone as well that there's a large part of our community that we're not speaking about. And that community that has spoken very loudly are not at Just anymore. They've made the choice to leave. That is the community around Just. That is their neighborhood school. That part of the community that's directly affected by Just is making that commitment and making that decision not to be a part of Just. And so I think it's vitally important that we hear that and we hear them speaking. Is it because we have family members or communities that those people don't understand the choices? And so we're not taking into account that they need that additional support to make those choices? I don't know. I don't have those answers, but I know that a large part of the JUST community is making a choice. They are making a voices heard by leaving JUST. And I have to echo Member Hans, we are in crisis. These 284 students are in crisis. We all know from our history and our knowledge that if we don't get them under control and get them into a passing state by their time they're in 5th grade, it's just a downhill spiral from there because it just keeps rolling. And so I agree, we are in desperate, dire crisis for these students, that we have to make sure that they are taking into consideration that we are taking care of them right now. It is so vitally important that we don't wait because Ms. McCray has said, this is not year 1. This is year 3. And in 3 years of a 6-year elementary school to be at that level, we are beyond crisis. We are beyond recovery for these students if we don't give them that next step. So I cannot thank the community enough for what they've done and what they're willing to do and what they're doing currently in JUST. And I do, we've talked about this, Superintendent Davis, we talked about this in the workshop. We need to highlight this school moving forward and for its namesake, making sure that we do whatever we can to honor that legacy that he left behind.
Thank you, Member Rendon. I want to say, I was really obviously very moved by everyone who came today. We have to really look at the students. At the end of the day, what type of cycle of poverty have we given those students when they're still not reading, when they're still not doing math? Over and over, how many years have we failed those students? Today on the way in, I spoke to one of our high supervisors who I know loves children. And she said to me, as much as I love kids, I feel like we have failed those students and we can't continue to fail them. There has been so many services provided in that schools. There's been different programs. There's been supervisors. There's been funding. There's been rebranding. But at the end of the day, how can we continue to do that when everyone, as a teacher, when I would group students together, when you have different levels of students, they all learn from each other. But when you have all the students there working below level, how are they going to learn from each other? How are they practicing fluency? All those things. I also want to say, I know how hard the JUST staff has worked, the administration, the teachers, they've worked really hard. We are short 1,500 teachers in Hillsborough County, and no matter what, teachers can choose wherever they want to go. When I applied many years ago, I took a job and I didn't even know what it stood for because I just wanted to get a job because it was impossible to get a job as a social studies teacher in this district. That is no longer the case. A teacher can graduate and choose any school they want to go to, and the extra funding that you're asking, they don't even want that. Right? So teachers are, for whatever reason, they're not choosing those schools. So you have half the teachers' long-term subs there. Although I'm sure they do a great job, it's not the same as having a highly qualified teacher. I think it's really hard because Pinellas County, they closed 10 schools or repurposed. Pasco County's done that. Hillsborough County just doesn't want to do that. And I did analysis, and I want to pass this out to my fellow board members, for them to see. When you look at the different schools around JUST Elementary, what I did was looked at the 15-year enrollment, looked at the 10-year enrollment, and looked at the current enrollment. And you can see the schools and all the surrounding schools. At the end of the day, we had 8,000 students in charter schools 10 years ago. We have 35,000 now. We have homeschool, 63,000 homeschool students. We have students who are supposed to go to JUST but are choosing other schools. It's not that we have abandoned Just, but people are choosing other choices. That's what parent choice is all about. Parents are choosing private schools. I mean, there's members who have spoken here, and they went to Just, but they don't send their children to Just. So that's my question. So when you look at the enrollment of that area, you will see, Tampa Bay Boulevard had 725 students, now 478. Just 15 years ago, 608 students, 283 students. All the way across, you can see on the graph that there has been a decrease in enrollment. When you have 1,500 teachers when we have all those vacancies, and in addition to that, we have a massive shortage where we're paying our veteran teachers 47th in the country. How do we respond to that? There are replications, principals, media specialists, ESE supervisor, lunch, maintenance. You're talking about almost $1 million savings. One school is just the beginning. Other surrounding school districts are doing that. The more that we can put into our students, the better. It's not about the building. It's about having those resources, saving those resources, getting that amazing principal, getting that amazing ESE specialist, and putting them into a school where you have 500 or 600 students. I would love to keep a school open with 200 students, but at $8,500 that what we get per student, and it costs $33,000 for Berkeley, I don't have that option anymore. I have to look at the best way to support students. And I understand the community. And guess what? There's 10 other schools in that area that we need, all of us, including the community, to continue to support. We have to do something to provide the services, the counselor, the needs for those students, because they're just as important as a school that's highly enrolled. Thank you. Member Vaughn?
I don't know how I got moved up in the queue so fast, but I'm gonna take my time. Mr. Farkas, where are we sending these children to instead? Pause my time, please, while he answers this. Thank you.
Where are we sending the Just students to?
Yes.
To Booker T. Washington, Tampa Bay Boulevard.
And what are their letter grades as schools?
Ms. McCray?
Yep. They're both C schools.
Okay, so we're talking about C schools. What's their fill rate when you're talking about employee ratio? What are their vacancies?
Great question. Booker T. Washington has no teacher vacancies at this time. Tampa Bay Boulevard has 2 vacancies at this time.
So I hear your point, Dr. Hahn. And again, it was a little feisty, but I understand it's because you're passionate, and everybody here who's having a conversation, it's because we want what's best for our communities and for our students. And so for me, if it was a magic bullet that we were going to take these kids, disrupt with where they're already at, send them to a brand new school, and because they had a higher fill rate and they were a C school, all of a sudden change their academic trajectory, and that was going to be the magic fix, I would vote for that in a heartbeat. However, I don't have the confidence that disrupting our students, sending them to a new school, the acclimation that it's going to take, and just because they have more qualified teachers in front of them is going to be able to fill, those teachers still have a full docket of kids in front of them that they have to service, and I'm not sure that they're going to be able to differentiate what they need for students who have such remedial needs when you're talking about learning loss, to all of a sudden service these kids and be this magic bullet to make sure these kids are getting the academic supports that they need. I mean, you go to a lot of our Title I marginalized schools, and their reading readiness rate isn't much higher than this. So really what I hear is it's the access to qualified teachers. But if our classrooms are completely full, and these schools are full, and the teachers are servicing 24, 25 other students, I don't have the confidence. I wish I did, and it's not any reflection on our teachers. Not that they're great, not that they're not qualified, not that they don't have the skill set to do that. I don't think they have the bandwidth it takes to take students who don't read on level, especially when we're talking about our middle and upper grades, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. If you're talking about preschool, elementary school, 1st or 2nd grade maybe, to remediate, what you're going to need to bring in is all the support staff that we say we don't have at Just Elementary or that we have. So while I understand what I'm taking away from a majority of this conversation is the big push on this is to make sure that we're getting kids in front of qualified students, teachers. I don't believe we've done everything we can not to get qualified teachers at this school, and that disrupting our students and sending them to a C school that could be 1.2 miles away, in which we said, do we have busing? Do we not have busing? When we talk about the 2-mile radius, that's a whole different ball game. I don't know if you're talking about sending kids through dark neighborhoods where we don't have street lights with fight or flight mode by the time they get to a brand new school. And we've talked about not even breaking up satellite schools because of the disruption of neighborhoods and what that could mean. And whether introducing a new population of students, even though we say that's what's best for the students right now, is really what's going to help them achieve academically. So if you could say to me, absolutely, Ms. Vaughn, the second that we repurpose JUST and we send them to these other C schools where they have qualified teachers, we're setting them up for success. And the transition isn't going to be factored into that, and automatically they're going to have access to every resource they need and they're going to succeed, it would be a different story. But I don't think that's the case. And if that was the case, we wouldn't have some of the challenges that we have throughout our district with multiple schools. And so again, if I hear a community saying that they're going to invest in a school and give something that maybe we don't have the resources to do, maybe we're going to send them to BC Graham, and maybe there's qualified teachers, but the teachers don't have the time to differentiate, or they don't even have the student ratio to give them the supports that we need. I don't have the confidence that's going to be the magic bullet to all of a sudden not be giving these kids what they need. And so that's where my thought logic is. I just want to kind of address the fact that I understand that when you hear somebody say, hey, we're failing kids, let's give them another 2 years, that causes some concern. My confidence is just that this change isn't going to be the magic fix that we're acting like it is. And what we're going to do is alienate another community, and we're going to close a school, and we're going to deal with the crisis that we have on the backs of our marginalized communities that are saying we don't want this. And that's where I'm landing. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent Davis?
Yes, ma'am, and I appreciate that viewpoint. One thing that Booker T. Washington and Tampa Bay Boulevard have proven is the ability to recruit teachers and retain teachers, and I think that is strong. And when you look at, we talk about we haven't done everything we can. We're putting major incentives in these schools to be able to attract. And one thing that JUST has is when we do all the transfer windows, they have the ability to go first, and they know what the incentive process is as they move forward. And when we talk about the community, and this is just not for the JUST community, but this is for the entire Hillsborough County, our doors are always open every day to our community members. They're open every day for them to be, mentors and to be volunteers. I know that we had a time where we kind of shut down during COVID, but we've opened up our doors every single day. There's no one that are stopping our community to be active partners in this process. And, we see that so many of our community members and organizations and agencies that truly, genuinely want to make a stand for children, they knock on our doors, they show up. But we will openly continue to try to extend and invite everyone as much and often as we can. We have an inviting opportunity, but openly, when we talk about 284 kids, it does matter being able to go to a school. And it's not about taking the 284 kids and putting them in schools where we're going to add it on to the current structure they have and increase their class size, because that defeats the purpose. It's putting them in cultures and environments that are thriving and moving the needle academically, and allow them to be able to have that recruitability to continue to serve children. It's not even about, tier one is great, and that's what we want to have, a high dosage of high quality teaching in front of children every single day. But you go into a school that has greater stability and a greater climate and culture, and you look at what they offer for their master schedule, and they have greater accessibility to specials that may be particular more often, and they have greater accessibility to interventions to be able to have push-in models, to have greater small group instruction. And all these schools have same availability, whether it's through host or boys and girls of before club, before school, and after school initiative as well, that we continue to use for extended learning opportunities. But I yield back to Mrs. Combs.
Thank you. Mr. Washington?
Thank you. First, I want to thank the Omegas for coming out, showing support. Toba for showing Pete in AACP. Thank you all for coming out, speaking for the community, because that's very important. One of the things we are not understanding also, we don't have kids at JUST because it's affordable housing came over in that area. So they can't even afford to stay in that area. They are moving out to other areas. So that's one reason why we don't have a lot of kids over there, because of that. You know, I go back, I'm going back a little bit further back now. The community does not have confidence in us because we are not assuring them the things that's most important. For example, some years ago, we closed down Christina Meacham Elementary School. We're aware of that, aren't we? We closed Christina Meacham down. We said, well, in the next couple of years, we're going to build a school. Everybody was excited because they don't build another school for us to go to. We haven't heard nothing else about it. Loss of confidence. The more we say we are going to do and the less we do, we're not building confidence in that, in the community. My next question, and Sue, why are the teachers leaving?
Ms. McCray, you
Yes?
answer that question.
No, I don't know why teachers are leaving. I know that over the last couple of weeks, we just started the transfer process. So 3 of them, of the 11 that are there, have already transferred to other schools for next year. That does leave the remaining 8 that are still there. But no, I do not know why teachers are leaving.
And through the chair, we can do some exit interviews
Yeah,
as well.
I think we need to do
we can do
a little
that.
bit of research to find out why.
We do exit for those that leave the profession, but we don't do exit
out the
interviews for
profession,
those
yeah.
that leave, because a lot of those individuals could be leave because we have an energy transfer. I know that that's been there for a while, that they can get closer to their proximity to their home, and a lot of individuals leave for that particular age. And when you have individuals that are leaving a school, that you're getting over and beyond your compensation packages, that talks about, you know, what's going on related to overloading, having to multiply, cover classes, and just being, asked to do more with less. And I think that becomes unfair to that profession.
Yeah, and because we need to find out why they're leaving. There's many reasons why people leave, and a lot of times it has to do with the leadership. Not saying that it have bad leadership, but a lot of times it does have to deal with leadership when people leave schools. And I know that for a fact. Now, we're not guaranteed when these kids leave their school, they're going to get a better education, though. That's your belief as a superintendent, and you should have that belief in your district.
And through the chair, if you look at all the analytics and stability and the culture, the answer to that is right now, if we move them today, that they would be provided that. That they would have greater consistency. They'd be in a culture that has greater systems and processes in place, and that there's high quality. There's better student outcomes, which means that there's better growth in these 2 particular schools, which means that they're doing a really good job of Tier 1 instruction, but also being able to address the growing differentiated needs at both Booker T and at Tampa Boulevard than what's happened in just in the last couple of years.
Okay. I'm just looking at the ethnicity now because I did some work. You know, they have 4 towers there, buildings, and those buildings people just moved in. They have 41% Black African Americans. They have 23% in one Hispanics. In Tower 2, they have Hispanic 20% and Black 62%. In Tower 3, they have 23% Hispanic and 56% Blacks. And then in Tower 4, they have 22% Hispanics and 26% Blacks. I just fail to realize those students are not coming there. It has to be something else. Because that's just hard to believe. Because you're going to catch a bus and go, unless it was exceptional school. And the schools we talk about, I mean, I don't ever put grades for a school, because grades is just a minute part of a school. It's the operation and the leadership of a school that makes it great as hell. Nothing else. Because I've seen schools with A's and they're horrible schools. I've seen schools with less grades and they do a great job with students. Because this is all about caring and taking care of students. I just believe we have to, I don't know if it's leadership, because in the last years, We have changed that school many a times. Because that school was the hub of all of West Tampa at one period of time. Because we always had service centers there along with students. But now, as you can see, affordable housing people have moved out. But people will be moving back in. Because I have the information here. They will be moving back in. And superintendent, when they move back in, we need to have a school for them to go to. But right now, we need to concentrate, as of now, we need to concentrate on these students. Because, even though they're not making the grades, and we know grades are important, we know that. But we also know it's important to keep people together and keep families together. Because even when people come down here and speak about going, we want our kids to stay together because that builds stability. And we don't know. We don't know how we don't know what's going to happen with these kids. But we got to give them the best support that we can give them, I think, in order for them to have and survive and do what's right. So, again, I can't vote for this. So that's it. You don't have to put me back in the queue.
Okay, thank you, Member Washington. Superintendent Davis?
Yes, sir. And I'm through the chair. I'm so sorry. And thank you, Member Washington. I appreciate you continuing to be an advocate for your community. One thing we talk about is keeping communities together. The majority of the students, 325 students, are being moved to Tampa Bay, and only 55 students are being moved to the other location, Booker T. Washington. So we're trying to do our best to keep the majority of that community together. We're in a subset when looking at geographically to move. And one of the board members said this night, one of the greatest equalizer is education, and I completely believe that every single day. And when we talk about where we are and what we have to do for these children, for me to bring this, it's hard, but it's at the same token, it's a must today. It's a must to be able to fight for these children and put them in a situation where they have greater success.
Thank you, Superintendent Davis. Member Gray?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the board members because as you, whoever's listening and looking, we really do care and are contributing to making a decision. I'm listening and taking note from every one of them. And my stance on the growth of the community, because I know that when we talked to West River, those apartments that went up, and there are many, we had thought we'd have a huge influx at Just. In fact, we were preparing to ask for more units. They didn't come. They did choose private and they did choose charter. The reason was the perception of the school. Now, whether that's agreeable or not, that was the reality. They had, from social media or whatever, not favorable opinions. So fast forward, now we have more development and a little bit higher income development at that. Will they choose to go to Just? And I don't know. That is a supposition that we don't know. We don't know if all these new communities are going to be lured into Just. So that's an X factor right there. I do think if we converted all of our thoughts and did a Venn diagram, and in the middle, every one of the school board members, I shouldn't say even, but if the community leaders, what they care about are the children. That is the commonality. And the commonality, as far as the numerical amount, is 264 kids. Is that correct?
284, yes, ma'am.
I knew, 284. So I'm down to what's more important, the community, which I think is so critical, or the children. Well, it's a horrible choice to make, but I will say right now, I care for very much both of them, of course, those two entities, but I care, and I am a child-centered educator as well. So the children are going to be my priority. That is the bottom line. I would say with the community, which I definitely respect and work with many of them, that they too can help in various ways with the new schools that the children will go to. But I have to say, and Member Hahn, crisis mode, I taught in schools that had kids on the edge of desperation in many cases. I don't know, Shay McCrae, if you would label these kids at this point in time, and I will put you on the spot because you're just a very mighty fine person and you know that school well. Are these kids in crisis mode?
In the absence of a teacher, yes, they are. They are in the absence of a teacher. I think our students have the ability to learn. I think they have the ability to grow, and I think achievement is going to be great for our students. They just have to have the right type of facilitation of learning, and they need to have certified teachers. They deserve the opportunity to have certified teachers in front of them every day.
Well, the best scenario, thank you, is for the community to also embrace a educational opportunity that is best for these kids. And as I think it was Member Rendon said, the emblematic justification, the historical amount that we have learned about Ernest Just can be done in a way that is indicative of his greatness. I also will say, God willing, we can build a school of notoriety in that area and call it Just and do the best job we can. But for right now, the transition of these kids is the number one priority. And Pete and James, you know that. We care about the kids, so I'm going to go ahead and support the recommendation.
Thank you, Member Gray. Member Perez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You said something significant. When did the teachers start transferring?
Through the chair, we are started they haven't transferred out. The transfer window is starting to be able to move forward for next year. We always do that. We're contractually obligated to do that. So they can self-select to go to another school at this particular time as the transfer window starts to be able to move forward for the next calendar year.
Okay. And how many teachers was that so far?
Ms. McCrae.
So far in the transfer period, three teachers. Yes, ma'am.
3 teachers. So, along with Board Member Washington, the students were moved out of this area because of housing development.
It's not your fault about housing.
The students were there, but then developers came along and moved all those children out of that area. It wasn't a choice. Parents just didn't pick up and move. And when we're talking about students, this is about them too. They've already lost friends from this move. They're going to lose community from this move. And they're going to lose their fellow classmates from this move. We talk about culture, and I've noticed a major culture here in Hillsborough County that schools predominantly white are not closed. But the schools that are predominantly black are predominantly black and Latino. And we would play chess with these students. We keep moving them, hoping, with the hopes of, that in the next school they get education. But you know what happens in the next school? Those children are ignored again. For years, Superintendent, we were giving out certified things, to students, not diplomas. So this has been going on for a while. Complete certificates of completion. So our children our Black and Latino children end up caught up in this crossfire between development and between us. And for me, moving these kids, it says that, yeah, we're talking about the kids, but also we're imposing on these children some major issues. And, Superintendent, what I said earlier was that you have failed these children, not our children, not our teachers. You have. Because when you see a school that's struggling, for you to put teachers into that school to support those students is a must. And when you saw the draining of that school with the developments that are going up there, even more so to put more supports in those schools. I feel, just like Member Vaughn said, that these children are going to get lost in a classroom of 20, 16 kids. What makes me think that that teacher is going to take the time for those students? So I'm standing on what how I'm going to vote, and I cannot support it.
Thank you, Member Perez. Member Hahn?
Thank you, Member Combs. I want to thank, Ms. McCray for her candor tonight. I really do respect your expertise and opinion on all of this, and it's weighing heavily into my thinking around this recommendation. I don't think anybody said that what's on the table tonight is a silver bullet to miraculously change things. But what I think I can say with confidence is that moving these students into a school where we know we can guarantee them with more teacher stability and wraparound services and extra resources is a lower risk than the other option on the table tonight. I think what you're proposing, for some of my colleagues, it's a little riskier. And, I think everything we know, I can guarantee you that Booker T and Tampa Bay Boulevard are a better option for kids. All the research that we have done around what's effective in moving the needle for kids supports my opinion on that. There are facts behind all of that. And I know that there have been a lot of things in the community around development that have had big implications on this, but I can't control that. And I also can't count on what's going to happen 2, 3, 4 years down the road. I keep going back to the students. 284 students. Yes, the community is important. Absolutely. But no one's discounting that. But I go back to these kids are in crisis, and I'm not willing to take a big risk on what you're proposing. That's just my stance. And I think that I would encourage the superintendent to work with the community stakeholders as the district works to decide if we move forward on how to utilize just building. I think that it would be an opportunity to set the foundation for a more inclusive and supportive educational community moving forward. So I do think there's an opportunity to build confidence and trust. It may not be, as just as an elementary school, but I think there's an opportunity. And understandably, parents are going to be concerned about the emotional impact of closing their child's school. So it asks the superintendent to really work closely with families, provide them the support for a smooth transition, and that may include some counseling services if needed for students and families. I have no doubt that the principals and the faculty and the staff at both Booker T. Washington and Tampa Bay Boulevard Elementary would closely work with students and families to facilitate new connections and relationships for students. Overall, though, I just feel the decision today for me is made with the best intent of the student in mind and improving their educational outcomes and opportunities. So I am still supporting this. And, we may have to agree to disagree. And I wholeheartedly agree that we're all being very student-centered. We have different solutions to this very difficult problem. And I think we all are being very respectful of that. But, I have, like many of you, worked in schools and specifically done a lot of turnaround work at USF. And, I am very, very concerned about taking such a big risk with students' lives. We're here to prepare students for life. We can't do that if they're not, in the best educational settings possible. But I'm just gonna stop here, and I appreciate, though, everybody's comments tonight, and the community's comments are not lost on me. I just think that we're in a crisis right now with these students. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Hahn. Member Vaughn?
Thank you. Just to reiterate, this is incredibly hard decisions that we're making and talking about. So I do appreciate that even with the passion, again, to back up what Dr. Hahn is saying, it's a very thorough conversation we're having to try to make the best holistic decision. My kind of perspective at this point is, now you mentioned that a good majority of the students choice out. So there are choice options. However, the parents that aren't choicing out are making an intentional decision to keep their students here. I mean, you talked about the community has made a decision, but there are 286 parents that could choice out and make other choices, whether it's a Magnet or whether it's Tampa Bay or whatever. Now, are they not choicing out because that's the choice they're making? Do they love JUST? Do they want to be a part of that? Is that why they're making that choice? Do they not understand the other process? Or, for me to make this decision and go against the very vein of parental choice, because that's what we're doing, right? We're saying to these families who have made a choice to stay in this community, we think that you're making the wrong choice. You're not making the right choice for your kids. We're in crisis, and we're going to make this choice for you. And we're going to move your kids, whether that's something that you're agreeing to or whether that's a choice that you want to make or not, right? I mean, that's what we're doing if we make this decision. And that's not to judge anybody for making that decision, because these decisions are very hard. But that is what we're doing. We are telling these parents they no longer have that choice because we don't think it's the right choice that they should be making. And so what I'm frustrated with is, as we have this conversation, we don't know why teachers are leaving. And maybe we haven't done an exit interview previously because that wasn't our practice when we're talking about, transfer periods and why teachers are changing. But maybe we should, especially if we have schools in crises where we're going to be making big decisions. Like, for me, understanding why teachers are leaving would it be a huge factor in helping me make this decision. The next thing that I'd like to say is, if we make this decision, regardless of where we vote as a board, I would like data on these students. Because we're going to make these decisions over and over and over again, right? JUST is just one school that we're talking about and a massive boundary change. I mean, we spent a lot of time during our workshop talking about District 5 and how many schools are going to be affected. So if we're saying that a lot of board members are going to be making this decision on student achievement, I want the data to back that up. Let's track this cohort if this is the decision. I want to know in 2 or 3 years what their progress has looked like, what their reading readiness has looked like, what supports were effective. Is it just the fact that it was around a teacher? So regardless of where this ends, if it moves in a direction where we're going forward, I want this as an opportunity as we face more and more of these decisions and we have to face communities to not be like, we don't know why teachers are leaving or we think this is the best decision. Let's use this as an opportunity to start collecting these data so as we move forward, we can have a well-rounded conversation about that. Also, you said that we went and got community feedback during the boundary changes. Where was the closest community meeting when we hosted community meetings for people who attended JUST to come and give feedback?
Through the chair, I believe that was Middleton High School.
And how far, I'm sorry, I'm not, does anybody know how far away that is?
It was Middleton. I'll have to go back and look where we went. We had over 15 meetings, so I have to go back and look. I know the first one was Middleton, and there was a second round that we went to as well.
So here we're talking about communities that are struggling with transportation. We're talking about whether a 2.1 mile radius is something that will be a disservice to the community, and the closest community meeting, which I brought up several times, are we holding our community meetings in the communities that we're talking about being affected, might be 6 to 7 miles away. And in that wonderful tool that was created to capture all of the feedback, what was the feedback that we got from families around Just specifically, Mr. Farkas?
I do not have it in front of me, but I can pick it up for you. I don't.
It would be nice if that's what we're saying, what we did to get community engagement, and that's what we're saying, that's what we're making our decisions on, to have that information readily available. Because that's the opportunity we got, right? To hear what the community, and when we say community, we're talking about the parents who send their children to that school. And that's what I'm referencing by that comment. So again, when we're making these very complicated decisions that have a lot of multifaceted pieces and we want to make the best decision, I go back to trying to have as much data as possible. And unfortunately, answers like, we don't know why teachers are leaving, maybe we had a community meeting 6 miles away and we're not quite sure what the feedback that the families gave us, doesn't give me the confidence to say that I'm going to supersede what these families want and impose not saying that anybody else is, but for me, and impose my decisions without more feedback on this. If we don't want to wait a couple years, then I say put this off till the next boundary meeting, or put this off a few more months, because again, I'm not seeing the data that I need to make this decision. So that's just my feedback on that. Thank you very much.
Okay, sure. Member Washington?
Okay.
Then,
I'm reminiscing up here. This is not the worst situation we've been in. The worst situation we ever been in was Potter Elementary School. That's the worst, because everybody was paying. That school was horrible until we brought Tracy Brown there. When we moved Tracy, that completely turned the school around, 100%. And everybody, well, we can't. They want to make it a K3 kindergarten. At one time, it was kindergarten, because I was the area director then. So we moved, we said, well, no, everybody panicking, running, going crazy, until we got the right person in there. And we didn't have enough teachers. They were saying teachers are leaving, the kids are leaving. When we got the right person in there for that leadership role, that school turned around. So that we need to look at we need to look at all angles when we are talking about Just. Thank you.
thank you, Member Washington. And I think we're really different than we were years ago. I mean, there's a huge shortage of teachers. I feel really sad for those students who've had multiple substitute teachers who haven't had a connection. I mean, we are failing those students. The idea that half the staff is non-certified and people are coming in and out of those children's lives, I think is very unfair. One of the schools where a majority of the students would go is Tampa Bay Boulevard. That school was almost a B. Those teachers have been there a long time. They have a good culture. As a matter of fact, the assistant principal became a principal there. That is a strong culture. Those teachers going in there, those students going in there are going to have, almost all of them are going to have certified teachers. I mean, as much as I really respected every single group that came here, I have to remember, why did I decide to be a board member? I decided to be a board member because I care about kids and I want kids to succeed and I want kids to have a chance to get out of that cycle of poverty or to move to a higher level or to have the same teacher for years or to have the same principal, to have those resources. That's what it's all about. We've really got to focus on that. And we're not selling the building. It's going to be there if there's an increase. But if you look at the list that I gave you, Just, Graham, Tampa Bay Boulevard, Washington, West Tampa, all of those schools, even Gorey Elementary, every one of those schools, the enrollment has gone down by almost 50% or 20%. Every enrollment in those schools, it is going down. Our enrollment is going down because parent choice is up. So we cannot keep tiny schools open when we're not getting the funding at the state level, when we don't have a referendum, when we're getting $8,500 per child. And I challenge you to find a private school that is not at least 15,000. Okay, Berkeley 33, Carrollwood Day School 27,000. I mean, tell me, how are we going to get a quality education when those teachers aren't even certified? And I want to say, I know the people at Just have worked very hard, and a community is very hard when they have to be a part. But at the end of the day, those people will have great positions because we have so many positions that are available for them. And we also have to think about maybe creating an early learning center in that community, something, K-8. What do we need to do? Because people want to stay in their community, and we need to work together. Everyone who came together, we need to continue strengthening that community so that way we don't continue to have a huge decrease across all these schools across the district. Because there are some schools that are growing. But why is that? Because people want certified teachers. If you're a parent at Just, you want the same thing as a parent at McKittrick. You want your child to thrive. You want them to have a certified teacher. You want them to have a counselor there. You want to have all those things. And we can't do that without providing the wraparound services and providing the financial support for those schools. So, with that, I don't think there's anything left. So, board members, please vote when your lights appear. Did we have a?
There's a motion on the floor. The motion is to approve the superintendent's recommendation. And so, if you're in favor of the recommendation, which is to close the school, you should vote yes. If you're against closing the school, you should vote no.
Okay, and it passes with 4 members stating yes. That's Member Gray, Member Rendon, Member Hahn, and myself. And the nays are Member Washington, Member Vaughn, and Member Perez.
The second reading of this will be on May 9th.